Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. How's it going? You know. Oh boy, was I up late doing that, and I overslept today. So please excuse me if I am just a little disheveled. I'm punctual though, so that's nice, right? We're just gonna be fluffy. There's absolutely nothing to be done about that. What's up, somebody? How you doing? Happy Wednesday. Yeah, I was though. I was up super late making videos, so I might be a little spacey today. Like I did get plenty of sleep, but my whole day is off kilter. So, um, yeah, not a whole lot on my mind so far today because I really just got up about an hour ago. Oh, and a like from somebody. Thank you, somebody. I feel like I'm on the street corner with my cap out, and I don't have anything to play for you guys today. I mean, my fingers are rusty. I'm rusty this morning. What up, Mecca? How you doing, girl? How's your Wednesday going? And like, you don't mind if I say, "Hey, girl," right? Like, I feel so self conscious about that sometimes because I just refer to myself as a girl. I don't know. It makes me mad that they've taken some of these words and like you're not allowed to use them anymore. Like, that's an innocuous word. I think. I'm doing well. It's decent Wednesday. You may refer to me as a girl. Well, yes. I do. I feel self conscious about that in rad femme circles sometimes, because I don't want to start a fight. I respect people in their opinions, but yeah, like yeah, I don't genuinely language police like that because what a waste of time. What a whole lot of energy you could be devoting to something productive. I don't know. I don't know. Oh my gosh. So what did you think of that? It was a little bit messy because, like I say, I was up until 3 o'clock doing that. So I generally avoid rad from circles because, like many online spaces, they have their tendencies to get toxic. Yeah, true, true, true. I simply have not had the energy to deal with a lot of that, and then a lot of it like transferred away from YouTube anyway. So you know, but like that girl Claire could have absolutely found some contemporary radfem material to set up against the contemporary trans rights material, right? I think the woman making the video is nice and well intentioned, but she bit off way more than she could possibly chew in a video. She needed to have narrowed the scope. Oh, and like I cut off the whole last 10 minutes of the damn thing. Her bit about the political response to the situation because I put the full video in the description. But I just really didn't have much to say other than, shaking my head over the whole centrist left liberal thing. And I'm just, whatever. Yeah, she's young, I think, and well intentioned, right? Which is part of why I chose her video because she seems like somebody worth arguing with. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to just put up people who I despise and yell at them. That's fun and all. But we can't do that all the time. Like, that's how you get that toxic thing going, I think. That's a big part of that. I would like to talk about everything to do with men, women, gender, and TRA nonsense over the last century in, I don't know, half an hour or so. Good luck, sweet. Yeah, right, basically. And I encourage you to go watch her original video. It's very interesting. And, usually if I find myself wanting to yell at the screen, I figure, oh, this might be a good one, uh, but like I had initially, she doesn't post all that often. So a few videos I had initially grabbed one of hers that turned out to be a couple of years old, wherein she was literally talking about how she doesn't understand how trans rights, how like feminism is necessary in a legal sense. And I'm like, girlfriend, did you hear about Roe v. Wade? Oh, wait, this may have legit come out before that happened. So let's go see what her more recent stuff is, and here we are. The thing that drives me crazy about the sports argument is how fake people are. There is no reason trans women shouldn't do women's sports if they are women. Right. She seems to be a trans medicalist in that she believes that gender dysphoria makes you trans and therefore qualifies you for the medical treatment for that disability, for that disorder, right?
Are you okay, something?
Yeah, I'm on camera right now, baby butt. What is it?
Could I please play my game?
After your movie is over, go back in the house. We already talked about this. Women's sports are for women, and being good at sports isn't a reason a person shouldn't be disqualified to sports. Yeah. Trans women are too good at it. You're right. That's not a very good argument. What?
I've already watched the movie before.
Then talk your brother into turning it off. Okay?
He's not even watching it.
Then go and talk him into turning it off. Tell him I said that if you're both okay with it, then I'm okay with it. I love you, but I can't help you from stubbing your toe. Put your shoes on.
No.
You all heard that.
I'm gonna ring the doorbell.
No, don't do that. Go in the house. That one reminds me so much of my little sister sometimes. It's unreal. They really want to say, well, conditionally, I think men should be able to pretend to be women to feel better, but the conditions are arbitrary. Yeah, because it is where, and I've actually seen trans people make this argument, to show how that people like that are in bad faith. That demonstrates that they don't see them as women, doesn't it? Not really, which they're not. So, from my perspective, that would be the part that makes sense. But yeah. It does look arbitrary. But yeah, she seems to subscribe to the view that they are mentally ill. In the case of trans women, they are mentally ill men. And yeah, that the treatment for that mental illness is somehow medical. I didn't cut out the part where she clarified why that is. I left that whole thing in because I had plenty to say on that. That's my metric for cutting stuff. Is I cut out random hypotheticals that people like to come up with. I do it too to demonstrate point you're making. I just cut that shit out usually, unless it's redonkulous or points that I just really don't have. If I think it's a really good one, I might include it and let my guest go ahead and not look stupid. Or, but yeah. Generally speaking, if I don't have anything to add, I just cut that out, whatever it is, because it's not relevant to whatever it is I'm trying to say. Because this is my channel and I'm making my video. It's totally random whether bathrooms or locker rooms or rape shelters matter to you. You're right. The idea that violate the privacy of women and safety of others is a reasonable disability accommodation is quite the take. Yeah. And like I say, I didn't cut out the part where she clarifies that. I would have had a lot to say on that if she had clarified that point. No, she seems to just, in this video anyway, and I could not find anything that contradicted this. She seems to just accept the idea that it is an illness and that's the treatment for it, which is sort of scary. Sorry, I'm going to smoke again. I'm outside. It is a gorgeous day. And we're on the front porch because last week that patio is useless in the middle of the day right now. It is, unless they wanted to melt like a popsicle. So please forgive me my bad habits. But yeah, oh, and in case you're wondering, yeah, I cut all my hair off because those split ends were just unreal and they were just getting worse and worse. And like, I am trying to grow it out and it's so incredibly frustrating, but like, I'm not trying to just grow a ball of frizz. And you know how they spread upwards and like, I'm trying to preserve what I can. And it wasn't much, but it looks all right, right? That's the best argument for it. That is a real illness and that is a valid treatment. Every argument is worse than that by a country mile. Yes. Yes. And of course, obviously, I would argue with that. And I really found it interesting, the comparison between her take and like what Rebecca was saying last week about the CAS report and how it doesn't have any evidence for psychotherapy, but like there's no evidence for puberty blockers either. But so she's just sitting there literally saying that puberty blockers are the best treatment we have. I've seen no evidence that that's true. They're possessed by opposite sex ghosts is worse than that. Oh yeah. Because you have to assume that spirits have a sex. Which, why would that be? Unless it's somehow inherently linked to your body. Which, what do you know? We're back to that again. What? I'm actually sort of fascinated by that idea. Because how do you get there besides like reincarnation? That's what that is an argument for reincarnation, basically, right? You also have to assume that somehow you can be born with the wrong one in you. Right. How on earth? Explain, just even hypothetically, a mechanism for that, other than reincarnation. Like you used to be a man or something. Like, shouldn't the default assumption be that the correct soul is the one that's in your body? Yeah. Any others that show up are someone else. Ooh. So what you're saying is they're not trans, they're possessed? That's really good. I love that. That sounds like a novel. That's funny. That sounds like a satire video, right? Like, where you dress up as a nun or something, and I mean, they're saying they're possessed, right? Yeah, I know. So dress up as a nun and like satirically take them at their word, right? That's comedy gold. Because if you are a man and a woman's soul is in you, who the hell is she? Yeah, right? And how does she feel about that? She can't be you because you are a man. Yeah, right. I really love this. I can't believe this is the first time I've heard this. I love this. Did you come up with this? Oh, I love it. Trans as possession? That's funny. How else, other than someone else's soul being in your body, does a person have to have the soul that doesn't match their body? That's a good, like I say, reincarnation is the only thing I've been able to think of. But that would still make it the right body. It's just not the one you're used to, right? I want to say I've seen that. That was also literally my thing, just to be upfront. That was my thing. So, because that was the only explanation I could come up with. I love yours. That's great. That's really. It's funny because I don't think of myself as a religious person. But those are both religious ideas, aren't they? By definition, with reincarnation, isn't everybody one you're not used to? Yeah, I guess. But, like, if you lived for 70 years in a male body and then you're just born in a female body, like, maybe that would feel weird. Hypothetically, again, it's very woo. Eyelashes are driving me crazy today. Please excuse me. But I believe also in most ideas of reincarnation anyway, physical embodiment is also like a punishment of some kind for like failing to attain enlightenment last time around. So it's supposed to be unpleasant in that view, right? I think. Full disclosure, I don't believe in that, so anymore. Like in your last lifetime, you were in a totally different time period, likely a different race, but the thing that makes you nuts is a sex thing. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. I'm not saying it's rational. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying at all. Would love to hypothetically try and come up with a solution for that. I want to say it probably would have been very personalized, you know. Oh yeah, but well, in my case, blah 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 blah. I don't believe or not believe in it, I guess. I have no evidence of it, but if you presented it, then I'd just be like, well, okay. Yeah. The reason I don't believe in reincarnation is it seems to be used. I've never seen any real evidence of it. Real good, that isn't some old documentary about some kid who remembers World War II or something. Like, no, like in my own life, I've never seen any good evidence of that. And I have seen it used as an excuse for a lot of weird and dumb stuff. Like how life is suffering. I'm not all about that. I like to think the world is more neutral than that, and it's more like what you make of it. This has been my experience. Also, just a lot of general entitlement. A lot of, delusionally entitled people believe that they feel that way because of some past life experience where they were a prince or something. I have met these people. And you just sort of have to smile and nod and back away slowly, right? I have met some loopy ones. The sort of person where they say, hey, I am a reincarnated soul. And you want to say, hey, me too. And then they keep talking. And you think, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm just not going to talk to this person at all. Damn, It's driving me crazy. I met lots of people with the crazies over some spiritual thing. My last boyfriend was under the impression he was some kind of messiah for a bit when he was off his meds. Yikes. Well, you know how it is when you go to a con or something and the person you're talking to, you don't necessarily know their medical history or what meds they are or are not taking. What up, Scott? How you doing? Did you finish your movie? I only knew all that about him because he was my boyfriend and occasionally called me from the psych ward. Right, yeah, right. So sometimes just meet these people in social settings where it is, socially acceptable to talk about that sort of thing. Like at science fiction conventions. Oh my gosh, please forgive me. My eyelashes are driving me crazy. Finished movie. Godzilla defeated the giant cockroach. Lily blouse. Oh, thank you. It is actually it's a dress. It goes all the way down to my shins. I love it. I would have predicted Godzilla would win. I would have predicted that, but I didn't want to say anything because I'm not an expert in such things. Thank you. Spiritual psychosis, schizophrenic delusion centered around religious nonsense are a whole entire thing. Excuse me. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they are. A whole entire interesting thing. a whole entire interesting thing that I've actually been doing stupid amounts of research on for my book. So, I'm actually kind of, well, I'm sad Philological's not here anyway. But Philological was just about to, had a brain scan done and was going to get to find out if she had TLE or not. I'm still not sure how to refer to that person. I do love them though. So, it's hard. Which I don't know, to me demonstrates just how silly that stuff really is. And was talking about auras a couple of weeks ago, and boy, would I love to hear more about that. From an actual person in my real life. Basically, I accept that this is a real person who exists, a discrete entity in the world, even though I've never met them. Looks very warm. Oh yeah. Well, it's Tennessee in June. Wow, very warm. That's what the white, the fluffy. And I'm sitting on the ground, so excuse the moving, the brushing, and all that. Yeah, it's hotter than hell where I am right now too. Yeah, right. Oh, and I'm trying to remember where that is. You don't have to say. I like to try and remember where everybody is. I was legit gonna get a map and put push pins in it because I'm weird like that. But then I remembered I don't really have anywhere to put it. Washington. Right. Oh, my cousin is getting ready to move over there. Yeah. Because some stuff that's going on with her, long story short, she's going to marry somebody that lives over there. So that's sort of fun. I was there once, a very long time ago. Right about 30 years ago. So. Ooh, good luck with that. Dating here is a thing. Oh, no. She's moving there to get married. That's what I'm saying. So. It's a very long story. But dating is not going to be a problem. Suffice to say. For a couple of reasons. They're getting married so she can have the government health insurance. Dating is, I think, going to be the last thing on her mind. Also, actually, her husband just died a couple of months ago. She's really just had a hell of a year. And it's only June, so. One thing I will say about my cousin is she just doesn't seem to do anything small. She's just one of those people where everything she does is just a lot. And everything that seems to happen to her is a lot. I hope she's making good decisions for herself. Yeah. No, I feel like she is. She's getting together with an old friend, actually. Because she needs the health insurance, because right after her husband died, she got her own nasty diagnosis, and it's actually quite a relief. Which might sound strange, but it is. It's actually quite a relief to hear all of that. And she's going to have help and health care and all of that. I'm stoked. What up, Scott? I'll show you her old backpacks. Okay. Are they nice? Good to hear it's a friend, because woman romance escalating quickly after losing a spouse sounds scary. Yeah, no. This is somebody she's known for years who actually used to be married to another friend of hers. So, no. It's not like that. That would be worrisome. I agree with you there. No. No, the whirlwind romance was 6 years ago when she got together with her husband, who had been a friend of both of ours for decades. So them getting together was sort of. He's kind of he was sort of an unofficial uncle of mine. We weren't super close, but that was kind of the relationship. And He's an old friend of my dad's, basically. And like, so them getting together was, oh, okay, Sorry for the ads. Thank you for sitting through the ads. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know they're a pain, but every little bit does help. We actually passed our payment threshold last week, even though that video did so badly. I don't understand. 2 weeks ago, we had our first 2K views. We had our first 2,000 view video. Yeah, that was good. That felt good. And then last week, we got 235. Like literally a tenth of the views. I'm like, thank you. Yeah. But then this week, it just tanked. Last week, I guess it is now. It just tanked. And I just, ouch, So apparently, the lesson there is that YouTube likes it better when I go after conservative pundits. Which, okay, I'm going to continue to do that, but I don't always do that. So, cool and cloudy there. Yeah. So both of our regions are living up to their stereotypes at the moment. Good to know. Excuse me, just a moment. Yeah, I'm not just going to be a slave to the algorithm and do whatever gets the most views. That is the path to hell, right? That's the path to carving yourself out a niche so narrow that you drive yourself crazy doing the same thing every week, right? Conservatives are really out there being crazy in the streets as they always are. Right. And truly, I don't necessarily address them as often. Because for one thing, I sort of take it for granted that they're a little nuts. They just repealed Roe v. Wade a couple years ago. Like, they are, like, the way the environment is around here, like, even, I talk to a lot of younger people because I have three. One is 21 now, but we have 3 older children. So, like, I talk to a lot of Gen Z, okay? Fewer of them are conservative than people my age by such a wide margin. Clearly what a bad economy needs is more babies. If people are already struggling, then giving them helpless dependence should make it better. It is quite hot down here today, yeah. Yeah, no, they've made it economically unviable to become a parent right now. They have. And then made it so that you can't get the medical treatment for that. We're going to be putting things in those terms. Because, if sex reassignment surgery for gender dysphoria is medical treatment, then an abortion for a pregnancy you can't afford to deal with is probably a medical procedure too, right? Again, the double standard is just outrageous. And on the one hand, if I were a trans activist, I would probably be shaking in my shoes right now thinking they're coming for us next, because they are, right? Scott, was it you? Were you the one who said something earlier about how the CIA had infiltrated feminism? And I know that they infiltrated the left in various ways, mainly through nonprofit organizations, right? Like, apparently now everyone knows that Jackson Pollock was a CIA op. But, like, I wrote a blog post about that, like, 6 years ago. So I'm aware of a lot of that. I've not seen any specific evidence for feminism, but like the fingerprints are all over it. Like, I believe that. I would love to see some. The evidence that I quoted for my blog post was actually a declassified report from 1983 talking about stuff they'd been doing in the 60s. which was long enough ago that the ramifications of that, and continuing forwards into the present, were only terrifying. I talked a friend out of being pro forced birth mainly by showing how many actual babies lose lives due to fear of treating pregnant women. Oh, that's terrible. I didn't even know about that. Sunset at 9/11 last night here, right? Yeah, yes, that's correct. They did similar to the black activism back in the 1960s. See, I've actually heard of. I haven't investigated it further. I'm not black, so I feel like that's less my bailiwick. But like, I've heard people reference evidence of that, like reports and stuff. Have you seen any actual like declassified reports detailing infiltration of the feminist movement specifically? I would be absolutely drooling to get my eyeballs on that. There's no reason to assume they aren't still doing it now. No, no, no. There's every reason to assume that they're still doing it now, if only because look at stuff. Look at stuff. It is the outgrowth of that exact approach continued forwards. Like, yeah. 50 years ago, it was Jackson Pollock. Now it's who knows? Who knows who they're funding now? Who knows who they've cherry picked for us to adore and fawn over now? I think part of how they snow people is the implication it was a thing they did back then. Right. Why? Why? I see no evidence that they've stopped doing anything like stuff like that. They have every reason to continue to like okay. Even if I didn't see any direct evidence of it, which I talk about that all the time, their motivation for doing it is still present. I have not, but it's been known and written about for decades. Okay, but like I have seen, like I say, an actual declassified CIA report about like the whole modern art thing in Europe, funding modern artists and stuff. I've actually seen that. I've actually read that material myself. And I would love to see a report like that about the feminist movement. I do believe that. It looks very similar, doesn't it? It looks very similar, so we know the Biden administration was paying influencers on social media to push certain policies. You do? When did that come out? Like, again, I'm not challenging you. I would just love to see that. I just don't want to accept hearsay. You know what I'm saying? I just just the facts, ma'am. There were FOIA requests that revealed some paying of media outlets and influencers from the Biden administration. Nice. They played a big hand in how the feminist activism became so fractured and splintered, so far off course from its roots. Right, that's what you were saying, and that makes sense. It tried to derail black activism in a similar way back in the 1960s. Yeah. Excuse me. Right, and I feel like that's fairly notorious at this point, actually, where you don't have to look too deep into the black activist movement of the time to learn that. Or at least hear about it. I don't, I feel like they were suspicious about it at the time. I put a space in that link in hopes it didn't vanish. Nope. Like, you can just send me an email. Do you know my email? It is brazen sheet, like my old blog, at gmail.com. You just send whatever it is to me in an email and I'll get it that way. These comments sometimes is super annoying. But like, that was one of the big points actually that I came to. I came to that as I was recording the thing, that this idea, the way they've inverted the function of language to be prescriptive instead of descriptive, is like the ultimate form of censorship because it robs you of the ability to even attempt to describe anything. Which is quite a trick. Right? No wonder all those people are so terrified. Sweet, thank you. Because I gotta get out my phone. Bugs. Ooh, some really great comments already today. This is so great. Oh my goodness, some really good comments so far, you guys. That's great. The games they play with language are annoying, and the heavy legal and social policing of it's frustrating. Oh yeah. Feeling like a rebel for expressing an opinion is absurd. You're right. On the other hand, it helps get that out of your system real easy, doesn't it? Real harmlessly. You see what I'm saying? It makes, the rebellious instinct toothless. Oh. Apparently, I don't have any phone service. That's kind of strange. Like, I'm on the Wi Fi, which is right over there. So that's fine, but. People have really let corporate censorship on the internet get them comfortable with the idea the First Amendment doesn't enshrine a right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way of putting it. Because I don't know. I feel like doesn't that contradict the idea that corporations are people? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's an argument to be made there. Hey guys.
Hey there.
We need to be able to walk through the room. So put the table back, maybe. This place is a mess. Please excuse me. Corporations are people, except nobody has to go to prison if they kill someone, and they can violate rights individuals can't. Right. That seems inconsistent. Okay, what I'm saying is I would like to be able to get through this way if I can't get through that way. I want to be able to walk that way if I can't walk this way. We had that for a couple of days.
Yeah.
That was nice.
So.
Anywho. Excuse me. Maybe it demonstrates how rights are really privileges anyway. That was one of the things in her video that I started with, the one that I didn't end up responding to because it was 2 years old, basically. She was talking about how women have just as many rights as men do. Which again, arguably with the repeal of Roe v. Wade, that's not true anymore, but like contribute financially to political campaigns and parties in an unlimited way. Good corporations are not people. No. They only pretend they'll be treated as people for the limited purpose of allowing them to contribute. Yeah. Right. And then there's just so many other ways where that does not add up, aside from the fact it being absurd. You know. No, but so she was completely missing the fact that these rights we have are in fact privileges granted by the patriarchal system in the first place. What is prioritized as rights, etc., etc. Hey, Scott, welcome back. It's kind of quiet here today. Notice how none of the other rights or responsibilities that individuals have the corporations don't. There's no reason corporations should be able to pay fines for things individuals get jailed for. Yeah, no. Other than they can afford to. Which I want to say that is how it works for human beings too. Is if you have enough money, most of the time you don't go to jail, right? A policeman just rolled by. It looked like there was something in the yard behind me. Like, ooh. Whatever. I'm in the bushes. They can't see me. It is and isn't how it works for individuals. Like, even if you're really rich, it is and isn't, right? If your lawyers can't get you off, then you do go to jail. Right. They do seem to serve frustratingly short prison sentences a lot of the time, though. Whereas with corporations, there's just this total shielding from individual criminal liability. Yeah. Even if you lose a case like the Pfizer one, we're talking fines, not jail. Yeah. Yeah, which you're right. It's a shield because in the old days, they would have dug up individuals to put on trial, right? Because obviously there are human beings behind the corporation's actions. Someone made those decisions, right? And that's the kind of thing that makes me think bread and circuses, man. Like what a pantomime that is. What a puppet show that is. What just legal theater that is, right? What a big plans. Just watched the video. Very good. Oh, thank you. I think sometimes these people do all the reading on a topic, but don't take the time to analyze and critique what's being said. I think her analysis was her own, but I think it was very limited by, among other things, being afraid of female anger. Yes, there are, but the entity that is a corporation can somehow be sued, and then there are fines, but on individuals who then go to right, which is legal theater, right? Based on the fiction that the corporation itself is responsible for anything. Yeah. Fun stuff. I think her analysis is limited by her struggling under the weight of taking on such a random collection of sources and questions. Yeah, see, in her mind, I think she saw this through line, right? And really, it's the through line that I had some objections to. The idea that radical feminism and trans rights activism are like two branches of one tree. I mean, it's more like they exist in the same ecosystem. To me, that's what I see. And there has been far too much, postmodern nonsense go on in feminism, obviously. And, if the CIA put that shit in the art community and the literary community, I mean, well, yeah. But so, yeah, why we're quoting Lily Alexander and Philosophy Tube, and then Shulamith Firestone and Monique Wittig from 40 and 50 fucking years ago. To say nothing of poor Simone de Beauvoir, who is that book is 100 fucking years old. What up, Joan? How you doing? Which, not to hate on de Beauvoir, but that book is 100 years old. Are you really sitting here trying to tell me that you can't find any more better modern representations of what the hell radical feminism is? Oh, well. And it only seemed to make sense to make that comparison in that way because of her weirdly cherry picked sources. Exactly. Exactly. And I don't know, maybe the cherry picking wouldn't be obvious. You know, it looks like she's paying radical feminism the courtesy of like going to the academic sources. That's what that looks like. And like for the TRA side, she references Judith Butler, right? She mercifully did not read us any quotes by Judith Butler. And like Derrida. Okay. But then, like I say, she doesn't go the extra mile to actually dig up any modern examples of radical feminism. Like we're extinct or something. Like this is some archaic philosophy. I mean, really, just that got my goat. I'm trying to speed through the original vid so I know what you're talking about. Of course, this woman didn't literally mean women are created like how gods make people from clay. Oh, and a lot of people don't understand what Simone was saying. They act like they've never heard of a literary device. I mean, yeah, right, yeah. And she used an extended form of the quote, an extended, well, form, an extended version of the quote. That did make it sound even more like she was endorsing the idea that you can just sort of create yourself a woman, socially, and that's what that is. That's all that is. Which I do. I just find that so aggravating that I keep coming up against that one quote over and over and over again. Do you really think de Beauvoir would be cool with finding herself as the wall people throw up in front of feminist arguments? The 2017 Wonder Woman movie, when they said Diana was created in clay. Right, yeah. But so far, making think of Round Femme podcast saying how they think political lesbians were the example of trans ideologies claim to identify into categories you don't belong to. Right, yeah. It all exists in sort of the same philosophical ecosystem. And that's my answer to that, because obviously political lesbians do not agree with TRAs about basically anything else. You were kind of thinking about Wonder Woman too. Which obviously 100 years ago, de Beauvoir was not referencing a movie that came out in 2017. We can be safe in assuming that. Yeah, we can also be safe in assuming that she was speaking metaphorically somehow. That book is like this thick and is her very articulate, rageful rantings about what she saw as the limitations in her own female life. But, written in the general way. Which is frustrating. If Simone really believed you could simply make someone into or not into a woman, then she wouldn't have escaped the pain of her life as a woman the way she did. She would have used her imagination. Right. Right. That's a good point. If she believed that, that book wouldn't exist. It wouldn't read like that. That's a good point. Oh. But yeah, I like to think that if she could see the way sometimes people use that quote, that she would probably be horrified. Because it's like become almost this thought terminating cliche. Where, oh yeah, women aren't actually real though. I don't think that's what she meant. I don't think that's what she meant. I think there's some intention to quoting and misusing quotes from women who can't answer them. Yeah. Yeah. Right. if she were to go and quote from any actual radfem YouTubers, you know, we could respond for one thing. I just don't believe, like, really, the idea, like, from the dialectic of sex, which is so incredibly academic sounding as a title. Like, wow, you know. Um, and I hate to harp on this. This is no hate to Shulamith Firestone, but like 10 years after she wrote that book, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay, and that became the struggle of the rest of her life. So I do not think it is fair to put that up as the rational basis of radical feminism. That's not fucking fair. And again, she wouldn't have quoted anything by Andrea Dworkin because Dworkin makes too much sense. But is a contemporary, also from was writing in the early 70s. If you want to quote 50-year-old books, hello. And also women who weren't able to speak at all on any of these modern phenomena directly without metaphor or the need to assume how they feel about the right. Yeah, that's another good point. It's a bunch of straw women, right? She turned radical feminism into a straw woman, you know, and my pointing out how exactly she had done that in a couple of different ways ended up me having to point out where I also disagree with radical feminism, you know, uh, which is basically the idea that biology has absolutely no influence on the gender roles at all. That's just not been my experience of where exactly that line is. I would love to figure that out. I would love to have, you know, all sorts of studies done on that and whatever. I'm one person, you know. But my personal like perspective on that has been forced to evolve through the years. So, because of experience. And Daly or McKinnon have spoken on this serious stuff because they continued writing long enough to directly talk about this. Right, yeah, but she didn't quote either of them either. No. No, 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 no. No, but so, and the idea of in the dialectics of sex in Shulamith Firestone's book that the genital differences would become irrelevant, that is a fever dream. I don't care who you are, because Monique Wittig, I want to say Wittig because it's obviously a German name, and I took too much German in school. But anyway, she, 10 years later, the other book that she quotes right there, you know, echoes that same idea that women as a natural class do not exist. So then, what the fuck are we talking about? What kind of feminism obliterates the class of women? What the hell kind of representation is that? What the hell kind of philosophy is that? That's like if Marx had come along and managed to, you know, or no, not Marx maybe, but somebody, one of his successors, you know, if Lenin had come along and somehow philosophized away the working class and then paraded that around calling it Marxism. The working class is an illusion. What? That's not Marxism. That is the antithesis of Marxism. A feminism that claims women are not a natural class is not feminism. Oh my God. I'll only quote radical feminists who didn't live long enough to speak on trans rights activism on the subject of trans activism. A wild choice. Yeah. 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 And, you know, she compares one directly with Judith Butler's book because they're both from the early 90s, where they're talking about how trans is a mental illness. Excuse me. And then she posits the idea that true trans is a problem for that idea, which so maybe she doesn't believe it's a mental illness. I don't know. I don't know. Again, I didn't cut out the part where she clarified that because it wasn't in there. I feel like a bare minimum requirement for her RadFem sources should have been radical feminism talking about trans rights or trans people. Yeah, I think that's a valid point. It's a whole lot more difficult. Like, she just made radical feminism into this strong woman, right? Which, the more and more I think about it, the more I may just make a video on various examples of that, because I keep finding that over and over again, where she is not the only person, even just to have been featured on this channel, that at least attempts to make the appearance of doing an academic investigation of what radical feminism is. And they always pull up these same few sources, and they always make these same few quotes that are such cherry-picked, hate-filled nonsense. So it's a straw man, if you'll forgive the gendered term, right? That they're making there of radical feminism that they can then dismiss. And that would be why they didn't why she didn't bother to consult any modern sources, or even like apparently look for them. Like, is she not aware that there are radfem YouTube channels? I am not the only one. We all know this. There's at least a handful of us still out there doing this thing, right? She didn't even look? Or if she did, she ignored all of us? Why? So the pretense of the academic investigation of the subject is so frustrating, because it's a straw man. Women are getting hit with this burden about their natural identity. This has been done. No one asked, what is a man? Right, yeah. And again, if I felt like doing a performance art video, there is one, right? And there were radical feminists that talked about the gender thing directly in the 70s. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, she takes into account all of history, right? Which, you guys want to hear something wild? I was watching something yesterday where dude was claiming to understand the meaning of Neolithic cave paintings. Yeah. He was sitting there decoding for us the magical symbolism of Neolithic cave paintings. I'm like, my dude, where did you find the Rosetta Stone for that one? What the fuck? Oh, don't worry about the typos. I'm working with you. That's good. Yeah, this lady using the original vid, I think, is comparing apples and oranges. Yeah, right. And the through line of them both being fruit. I think she's reading a little much into that. Agreed. Teaspoon's gone. I'm gonna visit with my little friend. Hang on. A lot of feminists in the 70s had very optimistic ideas about things were going. Yeah, they sure did, didn't they? That's frustrating and sad, because that was a period with so much rapid progress. So we're dealing with some things they couldn't have imagined. Yeah, we would in this day and age, and their statements should be taken to reflect that. Yeah. What? Put in their proper context? That's exactly what they're avoiding doing. And that's part of what I'm saying. Is that I assume that this source on radical feminism and its, pillars, that I keep finding these same sources. I had never heard of Shulamith Firestone until last year, when I encountered her referenced in a video talking about the academic background of radical feminism in exactly the same way. I'd never heard of her. I mean, she was a contemporary of Dworkin, and the more I think about it, the more it's like they're putting her in place of Dworkin, because that quote about genital differences being irrelevant is so obviously asinine. Is that when they talk about things that won't be a problem in their opinion, they're not oracles. You're right. They don't know how it will be tens of thousands of men doing this one day. Right. They don't know they'll get power. Right. What a fucking ridiculous idea that would have been. To the point that us, a lot of us living it still can't seem to quite believe how this, insane turn of events, right? It's the kind of thing that makes you think maybe you've leapt into a separate universe, like the level of insanity that is. And how many people have you seen just kind of be moved to speak up just by that insanity alone, like impulsively, and then get absolutely smacked down for it? I've seen that so many times. Because they're not ready for the level of hate that you do sometimes get. I really don't get a whole lot of hate anymore. A couple of weeks ago, I had several people accuse me of being jealous of Brett Cooper's good looks. Now, wait. And somebody did actually finally get around to calling me fat, which, like, hello, I grew up as the chubby girl. Like, I have been called fat to my face more ways than you can possibly imagine. Consequently, when I hopped in front of a camera 5 years ago, that was literally what I was expecting, with some version of, shut up, fatty. The fact it took somebody 5 years to finally get around to just directly calling me fat made me laugh so hard. If you read femmes in that era who talk about this, how this would be a serious issue, had contemporaries who thought that was unlikely. And you can tell by how little they speak. Right, yeah. Well, of course they thought it was unlikely. We would have said the same a decade ago. And like I say, it's difficult to really quite comprehend even now. Yes, darling. That is a very cute little cardboard airplane.
I made it 42 days ago.
No, you made it like yesterday. Go back inside. I love you. Go back inside.
That will help you.
Oh, yeah. Aren't you playing the Minecraft that you pestered me about? Why not?
It's boring.
Then go find something to do. Go find something to do. I don't care what, within reasonable bounds. You know what you are and are not allowed to do.
You do?
If your brother is willing to help you.
For 2 hours?
I have 1 hour left on this. And then we will see. The plane fell apart.
I know.
And I'm telling them because they can't see you. Go on. Go on.
Fixity-doo. Fixity-doo-doo. Owie.
It's unfair to take rad femmes from an era when trans activism isn't a serious political force on how it's not a serious issue, and women who don't know their granddaughters will lose rights they have. Yeah, right. And as always, I could probably make like a whole second video just from this great stuff that we're coming up with in this discussion, in addition to the stuff that I said in the one I made last night. Which this heat is really killing me. I don't want to sit inside and film. It kills my vibe, I really do prefer to sit outside. But so then the side patio is absolutely useless to me through the entire middle of the day. So unless I can get that shit done by 11 o'clock in the morning, I got to wait till at least 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Keep myself well hydrated. Yeah. I am less prepared for that today, but like I say, we have an hour on here, and then I can go in the house and cool off. It'll be fine. I'll be fine. I sometimes get emotional about how unfair it is to take historical figures and use their words to support political ideologies they never heard of and likely wouldn't like. Yeah, right. Because you can't ask them. Unless they were speaking on your specific thing. I mean, like, for example, you want to talk about the Black Civil Rights Movement. If they wanted to quote one of those guys, fine. Right? That's fine. Like, members of your own, historical members of what you consider your own movement, I mean, like, I'm not saying that quoting de Beauvoir isn't, like, good cricket or something. I'm not saying that I think that's unfair. I'm just really tired of, like, Nobody wants to bother to understand that book, and to me, it is. I guess basically what I'm saying is those two sources, two or three of those sources, just to me seem to be manifestations of a whole lot of internalized misogyny that those women were working through, and not necessarily great feminist philosophy. What do you want? Go find something to do. One more hour. Go in the house. What?
Who is arguing about not watching YouTube?
Find a way to come to a conclusion on that on your own. The two of you. Figure it out between the two of you.
We can.
Well, then I guess you're just playing your Minecraft or doing something else. I don't know what his problem is. I cannot come deal with it right now. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. I don't mean to be mean. But twice in 5 minutes is kind of a lot. How am I supposed to put thoughts together? Like, you find Malcolm X talking about how he doesn't think integration is a great idea. I don't think he'd like to be quoted by a 2024 Republican to justify rolling back, right? I'm sorry, I laugh because that is such a great comparison. That is a fantastic, what a comparison. Yeah. Oh. I feel like that might be a bad faith use of a quote like that, right? And arguably, like, I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't think that people are using the de Beauvoir in good faith. I don't. I don't think that, like, obviously she didn't just Google radfem authors, did she? Because they feel like, how do you, I'm so sorry I didn't mention this in the video. Like, how do you quote Shulamith Firestone from 1970 and not Andrea Dworkin from that same period? Because when I came into radical feminism, that was about all I could find. Which, again, love and respect, but a lot of her stuff, like her right wing women, apparently is really insightful. I may read that one, but like a lot of the other quotes from her, a lot of quotes from her that radical feminists love. Okay, so this is friendly fire here. Are, to my mind, outgrowths of internalized misogyny and misandry, and yeah, these are legitimate feelings that need to be worked through, explored, but that doesn't make it groundbreaking or core foundational feminist philosophy. That's not what that is. When I came into radical feminism, I was assigned daily to Dworkin and McKinnon in class. Nice, nice, nice. When was that? If you don't mind my asking. So that's why you're sitting there going, why didn't she quote this? Why didn't she quote that? Because to you, that's the most obvious. Yeah. Like, there are texts that are laid out as foundational to radical feminism. And Shulamith Firestone, had you ever heard of her then? Do you know who, like, did they teach her in that class? I genuinely want to know that. Because, again, like, it seems like the outpourings of a lot of fairly confused, very optimistic, but at the same time, it's like we made that quote by Monique Wittig about how when there are no more masters, there will be no more slaves, and therefore we'll just erase men and women will disappear as a class. And it's like, but like, what? So to be a woman is to be a slave? That's foundational feminist philosophy? I'm sorry. No. No. You never heard of her? That wasn't that long ago. That's when I was in college too. That's Yeah, and this is like at least the second person I've seen reference her as a foundational pillar of radical feminism. And the idea that genital differences are just going to be irrelevant culturally, that's absurd, right? That's not what we're arguing for, right? It's so dastardly taking women's optimism that literally patriarchy would vanish and gender differences wouldn't matter and use that as proof feminists don't care about women or whatever. You're right. 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 I, I'm going to write this down because that crystallizes something for me that, like, they were writing with this impunity under this assumption that the idea woman was immutable. So, these people act like they've caught them out on something that those women never even considered as a possibility. Right? Like, oh my gosh. You have a totally different argument you're making if you take the assumption that a woman is a real thing. And we know that that thing is biologically opposite. Right, right, right. Exactly, exactly. I said that a few weeks ago. Feminism does not ask the question, what is a woman, at all. We don't have an answer to the question, what is a woman? Because feminism does not ask that question. The foundational basis of feminism is the assumed status of adult human female. They mean it won't matter politically or socially in a post-patriarchy world when they say women won't exist. Right, 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 right. They don't literally mean it literally like these. There is no such thing as a woman. Right, 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 right. And so you take those old quotes out of context, and it looks like a gotcha. I'm looking for video topics that don't just involve me responding to one person, that are more like me collecting my thoughts on something. Bloody mosquitoes. Literally. Okay. Oh, hey, Scott. I'm sorry. Thank you for hanging in there, man. They mean the oppressed category adult female humans won't exist if female humans aren't oppressed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, 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 right. And sometimes they express that in some fairly extreme ways, right? Um, I still, even in that context, I still disagree with the assertion that someday genital differences will just be culturally irrelevant. Not only do I not think that's necessarily possible, I don't think that's necessarily desirable. Like, really, we want to obliterate ourselves as a natural class? Is that not the very just emblem of self-hatred right there? Are we not doing patriarchy's work for them right there? Please weigh in on this. I'm just going to leave y'all for a second, because really, because that pisses me off, and this is supposedly radical feminism, and I just so wholeheartedly disagree with that idea. I don't think they'll become irrelevant either. I'm just saying, I think that's what these people are saying. Right. And I appreciate your synthesis of their positions. Yeah, right. The banter back and forth. It's great. It's great. I love it. Like I said, you're helping me crystallize some stuff that maybe I'll talk about. I'm making some notes for future videos. This is fun. This is all another way that the male misogynist mindset has repackaged, revamped itself, pivoted over to whole new frontiers. Right. Because it's like that. When you defeat it in one way, it just morphs into something else to defend itself, which is kind of terrifying. An idea that can defend itself. That's a whole different kettle of worms, isn't it? I think that some of these thinkers, and to say something will be politically irrelevant, is miles away from saying it will not exist in a real physical way. That's true. But if something exists in a real physical way and is as relevant to our lives as, say, our bodies, I just don't feel that it's reasonable to ever attempt to make that politically irrelevant, and I don't see that it is desirable or necessary to make that politically irrelevant. And wouldn't that mean feminism would, be committing suicide? Wouldn't that be, I don't want to obliterate women as a group. That is not my goal here. What the? I think that some of these thinkers had the idea of recognizing women as distinct from men, tied up in oppressing women. Right. And you see that attitude pop up in other things. That's internalized misogyny. We cannot base radical feminism in internalized misogyny. That's not a productive thing. That's no. That's not solid philosophy at all. Excuse me. The I don't see color people who think you can't acknowledge something else is someone else is a different race without justifying racist impression of them. Yeah. Yeah. No. Again, I was listening to something yesterday about somebody talking about how the people who are you see racism everywhere are the ones who are preoccupied with race themselves, right? Cole, come here. What is going on in there? No, Cole, come. What is going on?
Oh, we're trying to compromise about the YouTube,
Cause
and I'm letting him if he puts on the art stuff, not
the chill stuff.
not the loud video game guys,
I think that's fair. Sometimes we just can't handle all that.
Yeah.
I had a compromise too. How about we both have an hour of what we both want?
No, because if somebody has a headache, that's not a compromise. Okay. Find something interesting that isn't somebody yelling about a video game. We had something exciting to go do this afternoon, remember?
Yep.
Oh,
Go worry about that.
I don't remember.
Well, go get reminded about that. Go in the house. Be cool. Watch chill videos. I don't see that as being so incredibly, y'all only got another 40 minutes. Get out of here.
Dude.
Oi. Cole. You pour me a cup of coffee with this much milk and that much creamer and like that much coffee.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm gonna need your mug.
Oh, no, I just put it in whatever.
All right.
The male supremacist mindset is like the white supremacist mindset. Keeps reshaping itself, keeps adapting, keeps evolving, keeps mutating, keeps pivoting over to new. Yeah, right. I think sometimes that the people who see racism everywhere, a racist talking point, is a cop out from someone who thinks if you don't discuss it, it goes away. And sometimes it applies. Right, yeah. In the cases that I was looking at, it definitely seemed to be the case. It has the same energy as look at who the real sexists are. To feminists who think women can't be equal to men, and that's why they need separate sports and bathrooms to protect them. Right, yeah. Thank you, Scott. I like to think I'm fairly smart. Look at these gender essentialist rad femmes always talking about their lady bits and painting things with their periods. So obsessed with the idea that bits make you a woman. You're right. I'm not sure what this is, but I feel like maybe there's a rule about like moderation in all things, including philosophy. I like you can just because you can take something to a logical extreme does not mean that that is the most practical approach to an idea. That doesn't sound very radical of me. It's almost like radical in radical feminism is supposed to mean getting to the root of, and I definitely get the feeling that Miss Claire in the video this week did not understand that. I definitely get that the presentation of these radical feminists, like Shulamith Firestone and Monique Wittig and all those, are, presented as extreme feminists. Maybe I should just start calling myself that. They don't want it, right? No one's using that. Nobody trusts anything anymore, right? You don't actually expect things to be what they say on the tin. So if you show up thinking I'm an extreme feminist and get not that, I don't know. Is it too much of a gimmick? I don't know. These Tims would never be able to handle having true periods. No. I agree. The truth is often somewhere but closer to the middle than the extremes, or at least it's more nuanced than simplified extreme views. That's really what I'm getting at. Is that we as human beings thank you, honey. Oh, it's a big one. Thank you. We as human beings want to oversimplify reality, don't we? But we don't get to make that determination, right? We don't actually get to determine what's important and what isn't, what's consequential and what isn't. We're pretty good at identifying those things, but it's not a determination. We don't actually get to determine that. And yeah, I think a lot of us definitely struggle with that distinction. Like these crazy people think this is racist thing I've actually looked up had racist origins. You're right. Oh, the flies are gonna get my coffee. Oh no. There we go. Let the notebook protect the coffee. Which I have actually. Oh, I used to love that ancient alien shit. I'm not gonna lie. I used to think that stuff was cool. I don't necessarily think aliens are cool. I mean, how scary, right? But all that hyper diffusion, that's what they call that. I love that word because now I know it. where, like the Mayans or the Egyptians or whoever were taught by aliens how to build the pyramids and all that stuff. I used to love that shit, which is, how I've spent the last 20 years slowly but surely looking into it more and more. And the racist stuff was one of the things I had to be like, wait a minute, really? And then, the connections are real. So, um, that was part of how I ended up looking into that stuff far enough to discover that that's not true. Bummer. God darn it. Doggone it. It's kind of like the whole personality and behavior has no biological basis thing. I went in believing that too. And no. The last 20 years of research and experience has led me to the opposite conclusion. So, it would be foolhardy, it would be unscientific, it would be in bad faith of me to hide that, despite the fact that it does, I suppose, contradict radical feminist law, philosophy. Like, does it? I remember seeing bullet points, like 4 or 5 of them, 5 or 6 of them a few years ago. I can't find it now, except in the blog post I wrote about it. So. In a country that had hundreds of years of slavery from before it was founded, lots of things do have racist origins outside the minds of crazy people. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Which is one of those things of like, ooh, that idea makes me really uncomfortable, so I'm going to ignore it. When you build something on top of a certain foundation, then downstream of that, there will be a lot of that. Yeah. I love your mixed metaphor there, but I get you. Yeah, absolutely. You would like the computer animation video Ancient Alien from the 1990s. It's sort of like the mind's eye. I've probably seen it back in the day. It's from the 90s. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was raised with all that woo. All right. And that's part of the reason I believe that stuff, obviously. But then it's very simple logic to think, wait a minute. So the idea that all those ancient brown people couldn't have, and I guess, do people talk about Stonehenge being built by aliens too? Which, like, it's sort of a flaw in that logic, but it doesn't matter because it's all nonsense anyway. You still have the DVD? Nice. That's a really mixed metaphor. I probably should have gone with seas or fruit or something. No. No, I get you though. It's true. It's true. When it's like building something with lead pipes, you're gonna have lead in your wire. Something has a toxic structure from its origin. Yeah. And so I guess in that metaphor, the social structure would be the pipes. And the behaviors would be the water, I suppose. Like I only spotted that mixed metaphor because I've been writing a novel for 2 years, and so that's the kind of thing I've been trying to watch out for me in my own writing because I have a tendency to do that too. So I get you totally, but sitting on the ground. Yes, that ancient aliens theories is inherently racist, saying that people of color were incapable of building those amazing structures without help from aliens. Right. And like I do think they say the same thing about Neolithic white people too, but like that's not the point. Okay. It's a myth like any other. And it's been twisted by people who would rather see that as history than the actual history that can't be twisted to serve their own purposes. Just like any other myth, right? So it's just a perversion of the function of myth. That's all. By racists, which apparently the whole world is full of them. I don't. I don't think. I don't know. I do think a lot of people, subscribe. I met a guy recently who was literally talking. I swear to God, within 10 minutes of meeting this guy, he launched straight into that stuff. And I'm just like, all right, let's do this, you know? And he's about my age. He's a little bit younger than I am. So, you know, okay, okay. I'm not arguing with the child, you know what I mean? Someone who maybe it isn't my job to educate. Maybe life will do that. No, dude's 38 or 36, something like that. It's like, he's a grown man. Excuse me. If someone wiped all of us out, it would be mysterious how the things were made. How the things we have were made too. Yeah, yeah. Um, and if the thing that's gonna wipe all of us out is time, right? The same thing that wiped out the ancients was time. They're all long dead. So they can't explain their weirdness to us. Sadly, we're left just to interpret it. And one of my favorite arguments against that shit actually is genetics, which, to be fair, is evidence that was not available to people even 10 years ago, I don't think. That they have traced, the human sort of diaspora across the planet. And it is a fascinating story and like the real archaeological record of humanity that they are discovering and uncovering literally as we speak is so interesting. And it's so much cooler and it's so much more interesting than the alien nonsense. It really is. And aliens did it. It's like the real world version of a wizard did it, right? That's bad writing. That's bad storytelling. That's not even logical enough to make a good plot twist in a story. So like and sort of renders all of archaeology redundant. Which I hate stuff like that. Like I say, critical theory and like, okay. I'm just gonna make a quick left turn here. Go back a minute to the video from this week, because there was a whole lot in it. You guys. Critical theory contradicts itself in its basic form. Is that right? The idea that all truth is subjective is treated as an objective truth. That can that be right? Is that right? That doesn't make sense, right? That makes critical theory in its foundational form an oxymoron. Right? Is critical theory a CIA op too? Rather than saying we got rid of large numbers of indigenous cultures, like who likely passed down knowledge, and now we have mysteries when confronted with their ruins, we throw in aliens. Yeah, right. Hey, what up, kitty? How you doing? But yeah, there's something is self-contradictory at its core, and then you have to sort of talk the long way around to explain it and spin it around like Derrida was talking. Flip the hierarchy. All of a sudden, make yourself correct through language. Ooh, kid's graduation. Congratulations. That's awesome. 'Tis the season, eh? Yeah, no, it makes all of archaeology and all of like anthropology and all of that stuff just moot. Just pointless. Just void, right? Why bother looking into any of that? Because it's just all aliens. It's the same thought terminating bullshit that like Christianity tried to throw at people. No, you don't need to actually look into any of that because it was all God. Go back and contemplate your Bible some more. Like what we complaining about this time? Yeah, elementary graduation. They have everyone pass no matter what. All the same. I'm sure it was nice, right? Congratulations, all the same. Kid continuing to thrive and get older and stuff. It's always good news. They mix them about 10, 11 preteens. Gotta love them. Because if memory serves, if you don't, you might kill them. Critical theory is about as substantial to me as cultural relativism. I don't F with either because I believe in objective truths. Right, yeah. I believe in objective ethical truths. Right. But so I'm actually just taking it on its own. I'm trying to engage with it in its own, on its own terms. Because I'm starting to feel safe in doing that. Because I keep coming up, I keep finding this. That when you do simplify, and have I oversimplified it? But I'm not even the one who phrased it this way. Claire did. And she had a pretty good example of somebody, explaining it that way. Who was the infamous philosophy dude who's good enough at explaining things that way that he's like famous for it? So, zippity doo dah. A typical tactic for eliminating guilt about hurting other actual people to find ways of describing them as not being as people as yourself. Right, yeah. 13 years, I feel older for every inch she grows. Oh my gosh! 13 is even, ooh. Yeah. Oh, those young teen guy years are rough for everybody, I think. We just got out of that. Mine is 16, so I think when you take academic terms outside an academic context, you lose a lot. Well, yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, these ideas should be able to be simplified such that they can be explained simply, even if it takes a while. Okay? That's why I'm saying, like, is there another part to that core understanding? But, like, no, that really does seem to be it. And I was kind of grateful to Claire, actually, for putting it so succinctly, because that's what's been hitting my gut wrong about all this all along, is if there is no objective truth, then there is no point in discussing anything. Which, as a writer, kind of just gets my back up. I just don't agree with that at all on a very core level. Obviously, I feel like discussing things is worthwhile. And the idea that academics would be teaching the opposite, would be like, it literally is a thought terminating philosophy at its core. Really? Like, wow. Is this what all the conservatives are panicking about? Because that would may give some rationale to that. But at the same time, if so, they're doing a terrible job of articulating that. In any movement, you wind up with people that have different shades of perspectives on the things they're talking about. Well, yeah, right. And as I was saying, I don't think that the extremists in a movement necessarily render all of its positions void. I don't believe that, because that's ridiculous. Because then we had nothing to discuss. Just because you can take something to its logical extreme does not mean you have to, or that is the best approach. If one can't speak, let's see. And some people are being literal about. I'm glad she actually admitted that intersex people are either male or female. That was nice. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I left that in. She was being pretty reasonable and trying to be rational about the whole thing. She was just missing her own internalized misogyny, which as a young woman you tend to do, which is why I'm not, coming at her super hard. Like, I think her heart is in the right place. I really do. She's blind to the system that she is a part of, which makes perfect sense. We all are to some extent and have been more so in the past. Internalized misogyny is something that, like I say, I'm going to say it again, that if I were to start some sort of movement or something, like one of the necessities would be to like have weekly internalized misogyny group meetings, like Alcoholics Anonymous type thing, where you get around in the circle and just everybody shares their internalized misogyny stories, and like we try to help ourselves and each other heal from that. Like that is a big part of this work. And most of us have been doing it alone, which sucks, right? Ooh, did I just come up with something for members to do? Oh my gosh, I'm having so many ideas today. Maybe I should sleep late more often. At least write it down. I mean, that also sounds really heavy, so like I'm not sure if I'm the one to lead said group, but it's a thought. Hmm. If one can't speak in terms understood by regular common people, and it's probably superfluous bullshit that doesn't actually mean anything. Exactly. Exactly. Just like with radical feminists, you see, some people literally think women as a category will stop politically existing, and some people are just presenting a hypothetical post patriarchy future. Right. Which is not super interesting to me. As lovely as that idea is, how do we get there? What are we doing now? There's a big difference between talking about an idea and talking about something you think is possible and will happen. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm trying to establish what is possible. What is even possible? And it strikes me as very boomery to just sort of skip to the utopian ideal and be like, there, my job here is done. Girl, no. You want to show them how misogyny keeps adapting, keeps changing, keeps mutating, keeps pivoting, keeps reshaping. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. That's why feminist and feminism has been made to look like a very particular brand via propaganda and neoliberalism. Straight away, instinctively, you turn away from the word due to its association. Yeah, right. Yeah. Um, I was watching something yesterday. Again, I listened to a bunch of stuff yesterday because I was trying to like sort of clear my mind of this before I sat down to record it, ironically, because I was just so, in my head about it. And, she was literally just having like a cultural breakdown of the 2000s. It's the area of the decade she grew up in, and the toxic messaging, mostly anti-feminist messaging that was in the media and the culture during the first decade of the century. No, the second. 2000 to 2010. Anyway, she included 2010. I believe it was the first decade that she was. Anyway, the point remains. Also, formative decade for yours truly. And yeah. Now she was talking about the era before smartphones became big. So yeah, it would have been the aughts. But so yeah, the anti-feminist messaging at the time, especially after the girl power 90s, was a bit like. Of course, when you were in it was just the world, and it's frustrating. But when you're 20, it's hard to put your finger on that kind of thing. And that's how that part of how that associate, like she said, was saying a feminist was a dirty word, and you couldn't tell people you were a feminist. You had to say you were an equalityist or an equalist or whatever sort of nonsense that was. I think it may or may not be a sign of ideas is bullshit if the person talking about it can't translate it into simple language. That can just be a limitation of the person you're speaking to. Right. Being able to explain things in simple terms is a particular talent, but not everyone has. Someone lacking in is improved. Nobody can simplify that concept. Right. But I have been looking into this idea for a while, and I have not seen anything to contradict Claire's characterization of it. I have seen no evidence in all these years to indicate to me that Claire has oversimplified it, and that is why it appears contradictory. Okay, I don't think it appears contradictory because it's been oversimplified. I think critical theory might just be contradictory. Yeah, I'm not good at simplifying concepts, but if nobody can simplify it, exactly, or if when someone does, it turns into nonsense. That's what I'm getting at. That's a bad idea. If in order to make it make sense, you have to make it complicated, and it cannot be synthesized down to its most basic idea, essence by anyone without falling apart and becoming an oxymoron, then what you've got there is an oxymoron. And the only way to accept something like that is to live in cognitive dissonance. Like saying conspiracy theories and the association to gay frogs and chemtrails and the tinfoil hat brigade. Right. That way, if someone points and says it's a conspiracy theory, then people's brains turn off. Right. Yes. That's why I'm fond of saying that these days we are, oh my God, that asshole over there is running some thing again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, you guys. But yeah, I'm fond of saying these days we're all conspiracy theorists, because the mainstream narrative doesn't make any sense anymore in a lot of different ways that set off a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So everybody sort of has to have their own individual opinions about things because that's the only way to make sense of it. You sort of have to do that by yourself. I honestly have never sat down and actually read a book on critical theory. I haven't either because I'm not interested in that. Okay, that's like it's. I'm not interested in hearing at this point. I've listened to a lot of it, and I'm not interested in reading how exactly it is. Excuse me, that people are going to sit here and tell me material reality doesn't matter, are going to justify that. I'm not interested in that. It's a bad argument, and I only have so much life to live. I don't see a reason to go and let them try and convince me that up is down and black is white and reality doesn't matter. So I only encounter it being used colloquially to describe what seem like an incredibly broad range of things. True. Critical theory basically says everything is relative. Right. Which is the assumption I keep running into. Which is the most unscientific thing I've ever heard. Even scientific facts are subjective truth. It's all very heady. Right. And their reasoning behind the idea that rationality is something white men came up with. How racist is that? I want to talk about something that has racism unconsciously baked into it. Right, yeah, you're right. Yeah, totally. Logical, rational thinking is something white men invented. What the and therefore we should reject it. Not only is that like cutting off your nose to spite your face, as far as rational thought, as far as philosophy, as far as any kind of debate about anything, it's also racist as all hell. So, obviously I don't. If I remember from college, that is. Right. And this is what I have seen. This is what I have had. This is what everyone says. The people who believe it and support it and the people who do not. This is how everyone describes it. I have no reason to not accept that the idea. Okay. So, the idea that everything is relative is objective. You see that, right? You see how that contradicts itself. The idea that everything is relative is inherently an oxymoron. It cannot be true. It defies its own claim in itself. Okay. You just see that. Which to my mind renders everything after that, everything built from that, either attempts to cover that up or rationalize that or somehow make that some sort of brilliant observation, right? That's a bit of a misunderstanding of what people usually mean talking about that. Okay. The problem is people are taught to regurgitate whatever they're told and to repeat it as truth based on faith, not fact. That's why they can never back up their points. I mean, to an extent, but also, I mean, God forbid we would listen to experts on stuff. Philosophy in particular is something that I feel very safe in questioning because what am I going to do? Dismantle the political structure by asking philosophical questions? I doubt it. Unfortunately, I doubt it. You'll see in discussion on race a lot of white men saying, I'm speaking from a logical place and you're emotional, so I'm right. You can't be logical about a thing that happens to you, but I can. Oh, yeah. They like to claim having invented logic and reason because, Isaac Newton was a white dude and whatever. But that idea is so white supremacist, I'm not going to accept it. I don't care who it comes from or under what, framing they want to put it. You're trying to tell me that, the ancient Chinese had no logic, no rational minds. Are you serious? Are you trying to tell me that the people who built the pyramids had no rational, logical... I'm sorry. It's just another version of the ancient aliens. Whatever. It was white dudes. White dudes. What? Are you serious? Okay, it's just a white male-centric way of looking at things, and I just can't accept that. That's what I mean when I say that people are strawmanning this point by rewording it as logic is a white man's invention. I see. Yeah. And so that's absurd. I've seen people seriously try and make this point, though. I've seen people who apparently seriously believe this and therefore have divorced themselves from all rationality because they think they're going to kill the white cis hetero patriarchy that way. I'm, and it leaves me a bit speechless. It reminds me of me in my car. I have mixed feelings about that. But we live in a rural area. As a sworn ecologist, I should hate driving places, and I do. But at the same time, how is that going to serve me or anything I'm trying to accomplish by denying myself a benefit that everyone around me has? An ability to get around that everyone around me that seems self-defeating. That seems like, finding myself a cross to bear to demonstrate my fealty to my ideals instead of, pursuing them in any efficient way. Yeah, there are people who misunderstand academic concepts and misuse them. That doesn't mean every person making a point means what people who misunderstand them mean. No, yeah. You can assume any person talking about weaponizing of logic by racists is of the belief only white people can be logical. That is what that implies, though, isn't it? I mean, would that not be an effective retort? Oh, not that I plan on getting into any debates with anyone who believes that nonsense. But I have seen people who seem to conclude from that therefore, if logic and rationality is like this white man thing, I don't know. Does that mean the Stoics, the ancient Greeks, were white dudes? I'm not sure that's even accurate. But I got this stupid idea from, seeing a couple of different people. And I've talked to a couple of different people, actually. I think I ran into this idea first in person, which was very startling. It was like, what do you mean reason is a white supremacist thing? What? Like, here's something that'll kill your debate, right? When I say weaponizing logic, I mean weaponizing the inherent assumption that lacking personal knowledge or emotion on a subject makes you more logical and your point's more valid. Yeah, I see. So it's like, I'm more objective than you. Yeah. So it isn't taking actual logic and attacking people, it's taking the idea you were the logical one in a discussion and attacking people with it. It's assuming the superior position. Yeah. Which is some powerful bullshit. Yeah, it is. I feel like that's the kind of thing men are taught to do socially. Like just with one another, right? They each try and take like assume the superior rhetorical position and then kind of neg each other. Like that's sort of how men communicate. I'm just allegedly, in my opinion. Postmodernist bullshit isn't being touted in the third world by most. It's purely elitist. Oh, well, yeah. But wouldn't you want to be one of the elite? See, you can spin that the other way. To flatter people's egos and people's view of themselves as good people. You can appeal to people's notions of their own goodness and you know make them feel good about themselves and the world and everything. And it's easy to get people to ignore stuff like that way. A lot of white people will say that because they're not affected by racism or obsessed with the delusion they are the only ones who can talk about that subject logically. That what? Okay. And see, this actually, I think is the opposite of how I approach things, because I tend to limit myself to topics I have some personal experience with. With these topics that I'm interested in, I have also just kind of been carrying on the sort of low key, unofficial. I mean, obviously, investigations into through the years, because I'm just a curious person. So, yeah, I've managed to synthesize as I've gone through it, my experiences into certain opinions about stuff. But at the same token, I'm not going to sit here and opine at length about the experiences of people I've never met who live in a completely different place, because I would feel terribly presumptuous in doing that. I think my own bias and my own perspective should be assumed. I am only one person, right? I think maybe we all need to learn to start to forgive one another for that just a little bit, right? I love videos where it starts like, and I'm talking from the American feminist perspective because that is really the perspective that I have familiarity with. Like, yeah, but I don't mean to like leave out women's struggle in the third world and da da da. It's like, yeah, that would be a separate video. That arguably would be its own thing, because that is a whole. It's not so different, but boy, do they have their own issues going on, and I really don't know a whole lot about them because I've never fucking been there. It's so presumptuous to, try and speak on behalf of other people. I speak on behalf of myself and others like me who want to agree with me. That's it. Based on my own experience and observations, which I feel is like the firmest foundation you could base a philosophy on. What the fuck else are you basing it on? Oh, right. Pure logic. Yeah, that always goes well. I can't point to any, examples from history where relying on the pure logic of an idea didn't go horribly, horribly wrong. Men do not allow themselves be bounded by such a thing as talking about things they have knowledge of. I know. They will use their lack of knowledge as evidence they're right sometimes. Yeah. Which is, again, one of those, I don't hold any qualms about just terminating a discussion if I feel that someone else already has and they are simply still talking to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I see this conversation is over. And yet, you are still conversing with me. Thanks for that. I'm just going to go ahead and, make that final. because I have stuff to do. You know, um, it's just a navel gazing circle jerk for rich people and those with Western privilege. Yeah. Critical theory. Yeah, right. You can't say Western bullshit doesn't flow downhill, if you will, to the third world, though. I feel like it totally does. 30 years ago, all those people, being interviewed in the Middle East and speak English. I've seen a lot of people talking about women and then describe something that only applies to a specific subset of women as if it's universal, and depending on my mood, it makes me feel away. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I do not mean to speak for all women necessarily. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that that's possible. I'm speaking up for myself and women like me, and I encourage others to do the same, and I support that. That's it. I feel like that's as far as I can possibly go. I am only one person, y'all. Come on. Like when they talk about how the experience of women is to be assumed to be delicate and feminine and put on a pedestal, that's sure an upper class white female experience. Right. You're right. So that's what I do. I couch things in my own experience. I think class has more to do with it than race. Probably. That's where we get lost in the weeds sometimes, I think, in feminism, honestly, is we split it up to class, we split it up to race, and like, no. And maybe this is white privileged of me. I don't know. But I really do try to keep it female centered. And if black women want to talk about black women stuff, great. Please do. I'm not going to speak on that as if I'm some sort of expert on black women's issues. I am not, shockingly. And I make no bones about that. I don't. I know that there are experts in black women's issues out there. I occasionally visit with them, a lot of them are sort of. I don't think they would enjoy the fact that I'm watching their videos. So I feel sort of alienated from that. But that's not my thing anyway. So it's fine. They're doing what they're doing, and they're speaking up for themselves, and that's great. That's the whole point. Identity politics Identity politics don't see women as a class or class in general. Yeah. I said most in the third world. There's elite groups in the third world too. Yeah, true. I figure they maintain their power in a different way, probably more traditional ways. If you look at the numbers, you'll see it's basically impossible to extricate the categories. The average white family has 10 times the wealth the average black family does. In the United States, certainly that is, yeah. They entrenched that really deep for a really long time. It doesn't just disappear. Wealthy black Americans are a tiny minority, such a small one that suggesting you're not usually speaking on the poor and working class when you talk about black Americans makes no sense. But then the inverse of that is not true. Like, I really, speaking as a white person who's lived most of her life in the working class, it starts to get my guts sometimes when I hear rhetoric aimed at the poor or the underprivileged or whatever as a byword for black people. Because it's not at the same time. Just its own separate issue, perhaps. But yeah, we can't, especially in the United States, it doesn't make any sense to just divorce the two. I guess in either direction, it doesn't make sense to divorce the topics from one another. I've only been poor and working class, and I'm white. Right. And I really, especially, there's a lot of liberals who talk that way, actually, who use urban, working class, and underprivileged, and poverty, whatever, blah, 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 as a byword for black. Because I guess they wouldn't want to draw attention to people's race. I don't know. So it's like they behave as if they're talking about class and are actually kind of talking about race, which the fact that they can even get away with that demonstrates, Mac, what you were saying. That they are pretty much intrinsically linked, especially in American politics. Like I always say, I prefer people clearly state who they're talking about in discussions. Yeah, right. And it's funny because those terms are so academic and they sound very clear, don't they? Underprivileged, the urban poor, blah, 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 blah. That sounds straightforward, which reminds me of what George Carlin had to say about euphemisms. I would love to be able to ask him what he would think about this critical theory nonsense of, language being prescriptive, language creating the meaning instead of describing something. A chair is only a chair because you called it a chair. That's not a great example because chairs are man-made. A rock is only a rock because you called it a rock. Liberals have no class analysis, which is so funny. That's identity politics, seeing class and race separate in a vacuum. Gotcha. Like I always say, okay. There's subjects that intersect. Yeah, right. But the trans activists run off and solely useful language around that. Yeah, right. Right. I don't know. I'm sort of, it's tongue in cheek, obviously. But the more I think about it, the more amused I am at the idea of calling myself an extreme feminist. Because that is what people mean a lot of the time. I'm pretty sure that is what our young friend Claire meant in her video that we looked at today. When she referred to radical feminism, she means extreme feminism. That's not what I mean. But no one's actually using that term, are they? So in a way, it's almost like this level of honesty in this tongue-in-cheek sort of, and then poking fun at the fact that, like, I don't know, it's an idea in progress. What do you guys think? Help me out. Y'all are my workshop. This is so much fun. Because, it is 2:07 and I gotta go. Wait a minute. We have someplace to be at 4, so I legit do have to get off here in a reasonable time today. Which is fine, because I am just dying of this heat. Oh, yeah. I was going to write that down. Sorry, not sorry, but white women. Wait. He's putting his bike in the car. Okay. I hate that liberals twisted around intersectionality. It's actually quite useful, right? Yeah. I made a video about how class and prostitution intersected. Some upper-class white woman derided me in the comments and freaked out at me. Sorry, not sorry, but white women from upper-class backgrounds advocating for something that is actually experienced by most as homelessness, abuse, and poverty. Sucks. Yeah, it does. Oh. Liberals don't intersect shit. They think intersect means including everyone without acknowledging the hierarchy that exists. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. It's a joke, but I'm going to play around with the idea of extreme feminism. Maybe I'll make a video about it along those lines. Oh, I can't believe it's after 2 o'clock already. I gotta let y'all go. This went by so fast. Thank you guys so much. This has been so cool. This has been so much fun. I have so many ideas for upcoming video projects and videos and stuff. Oh, stuff that isn't just me, yelling at some other person who can't hear me. I might be getting just a little bit bored with that. Maybe it's, time to make some actual little video essays. What do you think? crazier things have happened. But yeah, there's movement afoot. I gotta go find out what's going on. I like video essays too. I don't know that I could manage anything, as long as today's video, like a full half-hour video essay right now, just because the kids are all home from school, etc., etc., etc. Like, you wouldn't include the CEO of a workers' lead union. Inclusion is an intersection and is deriding movements, for fuck's sake. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Inclusion is an intersection. Intersection is not inclusion. Yeah. Because if you're all inclusive, then there's nothing to intersect. Like, there's no distinct lines to intersect. Even the term sex worker erases what's really going on. Yeah. As if a person in their safe home in front of a camera is the same as a person getting billy rides at a truck stop. Oh. Yeah. So lumping them all together under this one cute, neat term. Yeah. Again, I don't touch on sex work a whole lot because that's not the sort of thing that I have a lot of personal experience with. Thank goodness. But I don't support that idea. I cannot think how using your body to make money as a sexual object for men is not inherently degrading. I just have never been able to figure out how the fuck that's possible. Can't imagine it. Not unless you're a total psycho. If you have a soul, that would hurt you. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a heart, that would hurt it. Like, there's just no way. Liberals do love to erase things to make them feel better for not doing shit for anyone else. Yeah. Well, then they must love critical theory because that's exactly how that is. I'm gonna watch your video, Mecca. Sounds interesting. Yeah, same. Could you maybe put the link to that in the comments? That would be super. Mecca, put a link to the video you were talking about down in the comments, pretty please. Because I have to go. I have to get off the computer for the day. I'm gonna be gone. I got stuff to go do. The street I lived on when I was in high school was one that streetwalkers frequented after dark. Never run anywhere you haven't seen at night. Thanks, Mecca. Awesome, sweet. That's a good point. That's a good pull. I never thought of it like that. Oh my god. That's scary. But yeah, I gotta go, guys. Thank you so much for hanging with me. This went by so fast. This was so much fun. And, maybe something a little different like next week. Who knows? See you then. Bye, guys.